Good evening, everyone. It is August 23rd, 2021, and this Board of School Directors Legislative Meeting is now called to order. I'm going to ask everyone to join me and stand as we pledge the flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Ms. Evans, can you please call the roll?
Yes. Ms. Francis. Present. Mr. Henderson.
Present.
Ms. Ionetti.
Ms. Inetti has an excused absence.
Thank you. Dr. Levinowitz.
Present.
Mr. Rotsky.
Present.
Ms. Scherpier.
Present.
Mr. Sirota.
Present.
Mr. Waller.
Present.
Dr. Davis.
Present.
8 present and 1 excused absence. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, I want to welcome everyone to our legislative meeting. Just a reminder that we do have a mask requirement, and we do thank all of you for cooperating with us tonight. We do not have a Student Government Association report. We look forward to having our student representative here with us next month after our students have returned to school. And so at this time, I'm going to ask Dr. Yanni if he would give his superintendent's report.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Davis. There are 2 times during the year that our agendas are longer than usual, and that is in June when we approve the final budget, and also the first school board meeting of the new school year, because there are a number of motions that appear every August. There are a few items on tonight's agenda that appear annually and others that are unique, so I'd like to point those out. Tonight, the board is being asked to approve a lakeside agreement. Each year, we reserve spots at Lakeside for students who may be placed there for social, emotional, mental health concerns that are above and beyond what a public school district can program for. Those costs are only paid if we actually have students in those programs. There's also additional services that we can refer students to. You'll also see tonight there is a motion for dental services. All districts are required to have a dentist who can perform services for students if their families are not able to do so. So we require dental records when students enroll as a kindergartner, and then we also require dental exams in grades 3 and 7. Tonight, the board is also being asked to approve a contract for physical therapy. A number of our students with IEPs require physical therapy. The contracted service allows us to meet those needs, the students' needs with physical therapy. And from year to year, we evaluate those needs to see if we need to have more services or less services, based upon the number of kids who need those services. You'll see there's an agreement for access funding. Districts subcontract with the Department of Human Services to help manage access billing and funding. This is an annual motion that you'll see each year. There are a number of agreements with the Montgomery County Intermediate Unit. IUs across the state provide early intervention services for students in our region. This is part of Child Fund, which is written into special education law. There's also an agreement for Upper Dublin School District to access digital access library, and that's a library of resources that we can draw from when we're educating students with unique needs, and we need resources that we don't have here on site. And the IU will also be assisting us with IDEA, Individuals with Disability and Education Act funds. All of those are annual motions. Miracle. Each year, we contract with Miracle to support our student assistance program at the secondary level. The SAP program is integral to the overall support we provide for students in our district, and this is also an annual motion. And then tonight, the board will see there are 6 agreements being considered. These agreements are confidential as they focus on students and their unique needs. Some of these motions are annual because the student has a multi-year agreement, and some are being seen for the first time tonight. Also, we will see that we are going to ask the board to approve a number of affiliation agreements. This is so that we can have interns and student teachers from various universities working here in our district to learn and refine their craft. We have some fond farewells. This evening, the board will take action to formally approve 3 retirements. Actually 4, I'm sorry. Mr. Gary DeCiccio, Upper Dublin High School science teacher. Ms. Virginia Herman, middle school and high school orchestra director. She will be with us until November. Ms. Marianne Humphreys, who is a cook in our food services department, and Mr. Michael Shannon, a transportation aide. We wish all of those team members a wonderful success and much good luck in their retirement. The board knows that Dr. Jason Hamer took the reins of Jarretttown Elementary School in July. Our new athletic director, Mr. Matt Highland, officially began his tenure as our new athletic director last week, as did Mr. Ernie Greer, who assumes the role of assistant principal at Upper Dublin High School. We welcome these 3 administrators and look forward to seeing their leadership in action. And then I'd like to thank all of our employees that worked this summer getting ready for the new school year. From our administrative staff, to our administrative assistant staff, to custodians, maintenance workers, everyone that pitched in to make sure that we are ready to go for the new school year. And with that, Dr. Davis, I wish everyone a great remaining few days of summer.
Thank you, Dr. Yanni. We are now up to our first opportunity for community input. This opportunity is for action items and presentations included on this agenda only. So anyone that would like to speak, please come to the microphone, state your name and the location in the district where you reside before addressing the board. As they're coming to the mic, just a reminder that there is a 4-minute time period that will appear, I believe, on the screen. And also a reminder that all the comments are being recorded, and we thank you in advance for your cooperation.
Comment is about the school reopening during COVID.
Can you please state your name and where you reside in the
My
district?
name is Joyce Lindorf. I'm speaking on behalf of myself and my husband David Lindorf. We reside at 875 East Welsh Road in Maple Glen.
So, ma'am, I believe your comment will be for the second public comment this
Okay.
evening. We'll be taking second public comment after the board takes action on the agenda
Okay,
items.
that's fine, thank you.
And Dr. Davis will be announcing when the second public comment will take place. Thank you for your attendance.
Well, Andrew Bush, Maple Glen. This deals with item 11C, I believe, with the Sandy Run change order for the $244,000. I think the community in whole deserves some more transparency on that item. I personally don't understand everything on it. I would like to. I don't understand why there was a middle school that's being newly built that doesn't comply with ADA regulations. And I think that there's a big miss there, obviously, from everybody's perspective, from the engineer to the architect, to the school board, to the lawyers, at least that far, not maybe even further, to do a second litigation to fight against the ADA compliance rules that are there. I know that they're extensive, I know that they're complex, I understand that. However, I think that the public, the whole community, the voting community here, not just the parents, the students here, which I am one of those, deserves that. And I'd like to get an answer on having more clarity on why the second litigation was necessary and why it wasn't even in the plan in the first place. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any others for community input? We did receive several comments that will be read into the records by Mr. Diaz.
Thank you. Yes, the first comment. Okay, the first comment this evening comes from Jim Owens from Drescher, and the comment reads, exactly when does the board discuss issues such as court rulings to pay for construction change orders related to ADA compliant ramps for past, present, and future students at our schools? The community does talk about this. In fact, they have been very eager for the board to acknowledge it and discuss it. Did the board take the position that no students with physical and or mobility needs would attend our schools in the future to not have these specifications included the first time the design and plans were drawn up? Finally, does the school board have any message to those who publicly slander the families of students with special needs on social media, and has been the case in recent months, accusing them of, quote, simply wanting money from the district or being ungrateful? We as a community are better than this, and it starts with all of you. If these residents say they are speaking for or in defense of you and are behaving in such a poor manner, please stop ignoring them, address them, or ask them to stop. You have no problem asking them for your vote. Please ask them to stop slandering these parents. And there's a second comment for the first public comment period this evening. Comment comes from John Fustacci from Ambler. The comment reads, after reading the documents provided on the district website relevant to the litigation surrounding the new middle school, I have the following questions. Beyond the consent decree, why did the district not anticipate that this issue could or would reappear with future students, teachers, residents? Did the district have a prior sense of cost to remediate the issue prior to construction? Did the district have a prior sense of cost to remediate the issue after construction began but prior to the litigation? Did the district receive a cost estimate of litigating the issue from the district solicitor? How much money has the district expended on this litigation to date? Does this figure include the plaintiff's legal fees? The remedy is estimated to cost $245,000 for the change order. What does this involve, and have any alternatives been discussed, submitted, or had costs determined? This situation included the school board and the administration in general seemed more focused on building form rather than function in its facilities. This is evidenced in the beautiful but overpriced, operationally expensive yet deficient high school, as well as the exorbitant budgeted Garage Mahal transportation facility being proposed. I would also suggest that the relationships the district has long relied upon with engineering, architectural, and construction firms / experts be questioned given their track record of undelivered and over budget projects. The fundamental arrogance to assert that this situation could be dismissed as a one-off for one student is unconscionable for a building supposedly designed to accommodate all students for years to come. The district should be ashamed of itself for arguing this situation, let alone costing the taxpayers hundreds of thousands of dollars to defend an indefensible position on many levels. In short, the school board and the administration has an obligation to deliver the best combination of education, services, and facilities to the students and the community, but it also has to be fiscally responsible to the taxpayers. This board, as well as several previous boards, has lost sight of this, as evidenced by underwhelming performance in many of these areas while consistently engaging in over-budget projects and raising taxes at or near the maximum amount year after year. The residents of this township are growing weary of the lack of transparency or accountability with this board and the administration, and we are demanding better of Dr. Yanni's team and our elected officials. Have you forgotten that you work for us? Respectfully submitted. That concludes, Dr. Davis, the commentary that was received relevant to the first public comment period.
Thank you. Dr. Yanni, if you would like to respond.
I have a few comments. The first comment that I'll make, I think there's a misconception when we said last week we weren't going to talk about this issue because it's a matter of pending litigation. We're not at all arguing the ADA compliance. What we are doing is saying that we employ professionals, an architect and a construction manager. And not only do we believe, but we mandate that the building is ADA accessible. So we're not looking to go back and fight any judgment to say that the building is or is not ADA accessible. What we're looking to do is recover some of the costs that the district is paying now because we're having to enact a change order. So that's the first comment I want to make along the lines of that. Second, we're going to try to do this so that it doesn't become costly to the district, because we know with litigation is costly. And it's also not just costly financially, it also takes a lot of time. And we still have to get through the conclusion of this project. So we're going to try to do this amicably. It's going to take some time. In terms of being transparent, I'm being as transparent as I can right now with you, making sure that everyone understands that we're not fighting the ADA issue. The ADA says what the ADA says. What we want is to recover some of the costs that we paid out. Because again, we employ professionals that are supposed to ensure that these things are not issues. There were a couple other comments in here. Most of us were not here when the high school was built, but one thing that we did spend some time on when we were designing Sandy Run is we looked at some of the deficiencies, perceived and real deficiencies of this building, to make sure that we wouldn't repeat those same mistakes in the new middle school. So I want the community to understand that we were cognizant of those things, and we took steps to make sure that some of the same issues that are presented in this building are not a reality in the other building.
Thank you. Anyone else with any comments? Good. Okay, Mr. Luckman, do you have any announcements for communications?
There are none this evening.
Okay, thank you. On our agenda, we have our minutes from the June 21st, 2021 legislative meeting. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes? Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you. Any questions on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is approved. Also, tonight we have included minutes from the committees, the June 2nd Policy Committee and the June 17th Finance Committee. These minutes were approved by the committees and have been included to the public as an information item. Mrs. Sharpier, if you can please present the Education Committee curriculum recommendations.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Davis. Item 8A is the enrollment report, and that is just for information. We're seeing an increase in students this coming school year, which is exciting. Then items 8B and C were in our education meeting, so I think we can move those forward. So I have a motion to accept items 8B and C.
Is there a second to that motion? Thank you. We have a second. Are there any questions on the motion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is approved.
And then we have item 10, that's Education Committee Student Service and Recommendations. Dr. Yanni already explained at the start of the meeting what each of these items refer to. So I'd like to put together a motion for items 10A through N.
Okay, is there a second to that motion for A through N? Okay, we have a second. Are there any questions on the motion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Seeing none, the motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Sherpier. Next, we have our Finance Committee recommendations. Mr. Soraya.
Thank you. We have 12 items from the Finance Committee. All of these were discussed at the Finance Committee meeting last week, with the exception of item, there's a regular thing, item G, 11G was not discussed. That's our regular monthly payments for 2 months this time because we did not have a July meeting. I would like to make a motion to approve items 11A through 11L.
Thank you for the motion. Is there a second? Thank you, Mr. Henderson. Are there any additional questions on the motion since this was discussed in length last week? Any questions? Seeing none, all of those in favor, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, the motion is approved. Next, we have our personnel report. Dr. Levinowitz.
Good evening, welcome. I'd like to make the motion to approve the entire personnel report, items A through F. I think they're all self-explanatory. I also like to congratulate again those that are retiring, especially Ms. Herman. I made the motion.
Thank you. Dr. Levinowitz has made the motion. Is there a second to that motion? Thank you, Mr. Schroeder. There's a second. Are there any questions? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Next, we have our Policy Committee recommendations. Mrs. Franzik.
Thank you. The policy committee met last week for the first time this summer, and we just began back with our work, and there were 4 first readings. So tonight we're just going to be affirming the first readings of policies 006, 112, 115, and 210, which were, as I said, discussed. So I'd like to make a motion to affirm those first readings.
Okay, there's a motion to affirm the first readings from last week that were discussed. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Wallach. Any questions on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries. Mr. Wallach, if you can present the other business.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. With one item of other business, it's an annual motion that comes before us as a board to elect the Pennsylvania School Board Association, PSBA officers for 2021. The board has seen that there are certain positions that are open this year for voting, only one of which is contested. We have to vote for up to 3 insurance trustees, and there are only 3 running. We are able to vote for an East Zone representative, and there was 1 running, Edward Brown. We are to vote for 1 for vice president. There is 1 person running, Allison Mathis. For president-elect, there are 2 people running, we reach consensus tonight, and the board approves voting, the board secretary will cast one vote on behalf of the entire school district board for the people. So I will make a motion for the board to vote for Mr. Schott, president-elect, Mr. Mathis for vice president, Mr. Brown for Liaison representative, and the three candidates for PSBA insurance trustees.
Thank you, Mr. Wallach. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Mr. Henderson, thank you. Are there any questions from the members of the board? Seeing none. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Wallach. That motion carries. We do have our liaison committee reports. Many of the committees haven't met over the summer and are just gearing up again. I know I have a Montgomery County Intermediate Unit board meeting this Wednesday. So as we get into the school year, you will have much more information regarding all those additional committees. But that information has been included as an information item. Mr. Diazio, can you please present the solicitor's report?
Yes, thank you. I have the Sunshine Act announcements for this evening. And the announcement for this evening is the board met an executive session prior to tonight's public session, beginning at 5:45. And matters discussed in the executive session related to matters of personnel. Those items appeared on the agenda for the board's approval this evening, and also 2 matters of litigation and potential litigation. All of those are proper subjects of executive session. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Diazio. So we are now up to our second opportunity for community input. This opportunity is for any topic. Please state your name and where you reside in the township before addressing the board, and please remember that there is a 4-minute time period. Thank you.
Okay, Andrew Bush, Mapleton. Dr. John, I appreciate you taking the lead and speaking on that topic. I'm a little confused on it still. So if there wasn't litigation to fight the ADA, what is the litigation, and are we trying to recoup the legal fees and the cost that's coming in with the change order? What exactly is it? I would appreciate board members' comments as well, not just administration and not just Dr. Yanni. I feel like he's out there on Zoom. That's really all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
I am Joyce Lindor, speaking for myself, and Dave Lindor of Maple Glen. As Upper Dublin residents who put 2 kids through school here and now have a 4th grade granddaughter at Maple Glen, we want to address the issue of family options during the accelerating spread of the Delta variant. Now 98% of new U.S. cases at a time when kids under 12 remain unvaccinated. We know you aren't waiting for kids' vaccine to open elementary classrooms, but as grandparents with caregiver responsibilities for a young girl in a multi-generational household, we're asking for you to provide a virtual option, as was done last year. That is even more necessary now with Delta. Parents are being discouraged from seeking district-funded third-party online alternatives and keeping their kids home. Such guilt tripping is unacceptable. More than children's welfare and school budgets are at stake here. Household welfare, indeed, the health of the whole community, needs to be part of the calculus. We're troubled that school officials are telling legitimately concerned parents of young children that they should still send their unvaccinated kids to school because staying home will hurt their academic and social development. We share those concerns and aren't asking for another year of remote learning, just a temporary option like last year until vaccines are approved for youngsters. The wait is unlikely to be long. In addition to pressure from medical experts, Pfizer executives are predicting that their vaccine for young children over 5 will be ready this fall. The US government has already ordered 65 million child doses from the company. When COVID-19 began spreading in March 2020, it first hit Berks and Bucks County. School districts there shut down, but Upper Dublin, despite seeing what was happening, didn't proactively end classes too. When Upper Dublin instead waited to see, we were actually told we might get lucky and be missed. Delaying the closing of schools with such hopes was magical thinking then. So is opening schools now. It is known that the Delta variant is nearly as contagious as measles and chickenpox, and unlike the original virus, affects children this time, including the youngest who are still unvaccinated. American Academy of Pediatrics President Lee Sapio appears in an August 5th letter to the FDA on behalf of 67,000 pediatricians called to a halt for further delay in approving the already tested vaccines for young children. We urge you to read it in full. She wrote, in our view, the rise of the Delta variant changes the risk-benefit analysis for authorizing vaccines in children. Dr. Richard Malley, a pediatric infectious disease specialist at Boston Children's Hospital, warned earlier this month that everybody is a little bit nervous about the possibility that the Delta variant could, in fact, be in some way more dangerous to kids. He was right. This past week alone, over 120,000 young children caught the Delta virus. At least 81 children have died of Delta infections between February and July, and children's hospitals are filling up with COVID cases. As evidence go, and with many schools, including ours, opening soon, these numbers will soar. Across the country, school districts that have opened earlier than this one are experiencing COVID spread and have then had to close down or quarantine hundreds or thousands of students. Other districts are reviewing their plans to open. We've personally seen that masking is a challenge. We took our granddaughter to a playground and watched her and her friends play. Within minutes, masks were everywhere, except covering mouths and noses. Our 3-generation household isn't that unusual. Neither are family vulnerabilities. One of us has an autoimmune condition that causes extreme vulnerability to COVID. Others in our community have impaired immune function. For example, those on chemotherapy or prednisone, and those over 70.
Man, your 4 minutes has elapsed.
I have only a paragraph left.
Someone else could read it for you if you wanted to, but we do have to remain to the time.
Given Montgo's current transmissions rate of substantial, we hope that this board will seriously consider delaying school opening. We also strongly urge that if you don't do that, you make at-home options readily available to those concerned about their kids and adult family members' safety, and vaccines be available for kids down to 5. Thank you.
Thank you. And, I think you said his name in the beginning when you said for you and your husband. All right, thank you.
Hello, Anita Brister, Fort Washington. I just would like to know if you could explain a little bit more 2 items during the personnel report. So one is the independent contractor agreement. It's possible that you mentioned it, Dr. Young, in the beginning, and maybe I missed it, but on the description of that, it says, Ms. Catherine Rossi to be utilized as a contractor for Upper Dublin School District during this year to perform an independent investigation, not to exceed $5,000. Are you allowed to, if you're allowed to elaborate on that a little bit? And I'm gonna be honest, I just really couldn't speed read through all of this earlier today or tonight. But my second question is about the memorandum of agreement with the teachers union, which is in the personnel report. So just to give the background here, it says the district and the UDEA are desirous of memorializing their agreement related to providing cyber instruction to district students as a result of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. So we're not having a cyber option that I know of. But are you talking about if kids are out sick or quarantine, that then it has, like, could you just provide some details on what are the teachers concerned about here? Or is it teaching kids who might have to be out sick? Or what is it? Because we're not doing a virtual option through the district this year, at least not so far. So could you provide some details on that agreement with the teachers? Thank you.
Geneva Tella, Ambler. The question that I forgot on Wednesday was the 90 acres of space. I think you were talking about the Prudential property that's now for sale as an empty building. And I would love to see our district be proactive and work with our township so that 90 acres doesn't become God knows how many houses. And maybe we work with our township planning committee when they're talking about zoning changes and what they're going through. We could have someone actually go to those meetings. I went through it for a property near me, and they're very long and tedious, but I think it's really important that our district, our school, and our township really work well together. This is 90 acres, and I think it's an opportunity for saving some space, some open space, some ball field space, and I think we could really work together and do smart things and not miss this opportunity. We could maybe use that space for a bus depot or ball fields. Or we could actually maybe have some of our leading contractors that we've used for years and years and years that get millions and millions of dollars from the taxpayers. Like we could have Dewey Indoor Athletic Facility or BET's baseball stadium or Toll Soccer Complex. Maybe there could be some working together with all these companies and our township and do something really good with that 90 acres, assuming it's not gonna sell with just one building on it. The bus depot, I will reiterate, $7.8 million. We could rent for 20 years at $400,000 a year just to cover that, let alone the interest on that loan that would have to be taken. We have waited 12 years from the initial mistake of not getting that as part of the Upper Delma High School, and right now, putting it only feet from children in a space that's small, not ideal for that cost is like forcing a square peg in a round hole. There are empty parking lots galore throughout this district, especially in Industrial Park. I know because I'm practicing with my 16-year-old to drive, and so I've become quite familiar with them more recently. As far as the ADA situation, I don't think people were wondering necessarily, aren't thinking that you're necessarily fighting the 262, I guess. Or that, no, not that you're not necessarily fighting the ADA again. But some people want to know why you fought it at all. We fought it once, lost, consent decree, and fought it again. And I think that's where people are not understanding why we're getting such advice. Thank you.
Lisa Burns for Washington. Okay, so my questions are going to, in regards to the health and safety plan, since we're on our way to school, and there's a few things that I think are unclear to parents moving forward. We're almost there in a week and a half. So in regards to quarantine, I think we need a defined procedure. Right now, it just basically says if you're quarantined, if you're masked, both masks, distance, you don't have to quarantine, but there may be a few cases where that does happen, kids have to be quarantined. What exactly is the procedure for that? If a child has to be forced to go home, how many days, what exactly, how are they actually getting their instruction? We're not doing Cardinal Academy, we're not doing virtual schooling, so I know last year there were some cases with elementary school kids, they got sent home, they weren't allowed to go to Cardinal Academy because that was closed off, and they had to wait for instruction. Whether it be packets, there was a lot of confusion in the beginning, and I just want to make sure we're not setting up for confusion again. We want to get kids in school, keep them in school, and make sure that parents know what's going to happen coming down the pike. And like I said, again, the health and safety plan, it says, it does spell out very nicely about everybody's, if you're both wearing masks, if or 3 feet apart, then no quarantine, but you always know there's a few cases. So let's be proactive and spell that out for parents so they know exactly what's coming down the pike. And I'm still trying to understand the rhyme or reason around quarantine. Because if we were masked last year, we were distanced last year, why were we quarantining last year? It doesn't make sense. You know, we gotta have a discussion about that or a message to parents about that. And then my other question is, last week at the finance meeting, Dr. Yanni spoke about you would be having a meeting with superintendents with the Montgomery County Board of Health in regards to pool testing. I'd love to hear what happened there. Did you have a meeting? What is Upper Dublin deciding to do? And if we are doing pool testing, I don't have to ask my questions. If the answer is no, great, we'll move on. But if the answer is yes, I have a lot of questions around that. I know it's a parent opting in sort of testing. So my first question is, well, if we all don't opt in Jim and Joey's class, half of them opt in, half of them don't, how in the world are we doing pool testing? You know, what happens to those kids that weren't part of the testing? So if the answer is yes, then there's a lot more questions around it. And I hope that you'll be able to explain that with parent communication or something that comes up. And with the flu season coming up right around the corner, I hope that if we do decide to do the pool testing is 100% for COVID and not questionable for COVID / maybe the flu. Because then that gets really messy and really muddy. So those are my 2 issues. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see anyone else in the audience. I'm going towards the microphone. Mr. Diazio, do you have any other comments that were sent in?
Yes, there are some additional comments this evening. So I'll start with a comment from Aaron Wenzel from Maple Glen. And the comment reads, I wanted to thank the leadership team for updating the district's masking policy. Masking, in coordination with other mitigation efforts, such as cleaning and social distancing, is an important step towards keeping our kids safe, particularly since some of our children are not yet eligible to receive the vaccine. My middle schooler and rising 5th grader were grateful to be back in the classroom last year and understood that masking helped keep them and their friends and teachers safe. Next comment comes from Lisa Watkins, Drescher. Comment reads, as a biochemist and lecturer at a small liberal arts college and a very concerned parent, I want to know if the school district plans to use rapid testing to screen students weekly. My small college was successful last fall in preventing a campus outbreak by using screening tests, PCR tests. Given that children under 12 cannot be vaccinated at this time, and the infectious Delta strain, we are in a different situation than in June. A plan to screen students to find positive cases before an outbreak occurs is the socially responsible thing to do for our community and kids. Thank you for your consideration. And that is the only additional comments that I've received.
Thank you. I am going to turn it over to our superintendent for comments.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. There was a comment made about district officials discouraging families from opting for third party. And I'd like to connect after the meeting or tomorrow via phone, because when I read that comment this afternoon, that's distressing, because that's not the message that we want to send. So I'll be following up directly with those community members. In that same community input, there was reference to March 2020. I believe it was March 2020, correct me if I'm wrong, that we waited to shut down when other districts were shutting down. We shut down at the behest of the government, or at the behest of the governor. It happened on Thursday, March 12th. And it was, the rest of the state was shut down on the 13th. So there was no waiting period for the district to shut down. Some of you will remember, as one kid told me, that I canceled life a couple days before that when I canceled congregate activities for a period of time because outside the regular school day, we were worried about kids congregating and potentially passing COVID-19. So there was no waiting, period by the district to shut down. The personnel, or the investigation mentioned in one of the community inputs tonight, that was someone that we hired as a third party to conduct a confidential personnel matter that was done over the summer. And the reason that was done, we have new Title IX compliance that we have to adhere to, and we felt that it was in the best interest of the district to have a third party do that investigation. The memorandum of agreement with the Upper Dublin Education Association is for virtual learning. As of this afternoon, we have 7 students that are going to partake in virtual learning. We're going to be using a provider to provide that instruction. So last year, we did concurrent teaching at the secondary level where teachers taught kids in front of them and taught kids virtually. And we knew that was a temporary fix for the situation that we were in. It was not something that was going to be sustainable long term. I'm not saying we'll never get back to that point if something really crazy happens, but we are not looking at this time to do concurrent teaching, and that's what that memorandum is for. At the elementary level, we had dedicated teachers on each grade level, and then when kids were getting sick because we weren't doing concurrent teaching at the elementary level, we had quarantine teachers working with our kids. If there are families that want their child to learn virtually, the best course of action right now is to reach out to the building principal. The building principal will provide you with the information that you need. With regard to working with the township, we meet every 3 months with the township. There's a number of administrators. That would be Mr. Leckman, Mr. Lester, and I, and 2 board members, Mr. Rofsky and Mr. Sirota. We meet with officials from the township. The district is always looking and willing to be collaborative with the township. You know, one district, one township, we're the same area. We should be working together where it makes sense to work together. So we're always going to put that collaborative foot forward with the district. Quarantining. So one of the things that struck me really odd this summer was the Montgomery County Office of Public Health's quarantine process. Last year, if you were within 6 feet, even if you were masked, if you were within 6 feet for 15 or more minutes, you had to be quarantined. And that led to a large number of kids being quarantined, especially when you think on the bus. And the bus mostly was really the big area. But we were saying 6 feet to the maximum extent feasible. And in some of our elementary classes, we were at 4, 4.5, 5, 5.5 feet. Last year, we asked over and over and over again, the Office of Public Health, to please consider a revision to quarantine processes because everyone was masked. And we kept being told, no, no, no. The folks at the Office of Public Health know I was going to make that statement tonight because community members need to understand that we are bound to follow the guidelines put out by Montgomery County Office of Public Health. They wrote COVID and the quarantine guidelines into the local health code. That's not the same in every county, but we are mandated to follow that code. And this week's update, our regularly scheduled update, we have information about quarantine and some scenarios so that families can actually walk through so you can see when quarantine would apply and when it would apply. We're still going to communicate just as we did last year when there's a positive case of COVID in a classroom or in a setting, but we're going to follow the revised quarantine guidelines that came out, I believe it was July 15th. We'll also be discussing how we will be providing instruction for kids and work for kids when they need to quarantine. Given that we are engaged in blended learning is not virtual instruction. It's a way to meet kids' needs. Much of the curriculum and the content that kids are learning are in our student learning management systems. So we'll be sharing information about if kids do have to quarantine, how do they get their instruction? Pool testing. So last week on Thursday, the Montgomery County superintendents met with the Office of Public Health, and we learned a number of things about pool testing. The most concerning, beyond the fact that you really need to have everybody in a setting to sign up for it, otherwise it's not really pool testing, is that the results take at least 3 days to come back. So if you play this out, let's say a 4th grade classroom, we test everybody on Monday. Let's say in a magical 4th grade classroom, everybody agrees to test. We test on Monday, we don't get the results back until Thursday. If someone's positive, if there's a positive result, if they're asymptomatic, that child has been in class Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So at this time, we're not looking at pool testing. If that changes, as it says in the health and safety plan, we will absolutely go ahead and communicate that out via Infinite Campus, via any number of updates that we have coming out. But at this time, we're not looking at doing testing. I'm not trying to push off the answer, but we have 2 more meetings this week to discuss it because there's another testing program called Project ACE. But if you're only doing random testing, we want to make sure that if we go down the road of testing that is the most effective that we can put into play here in the district. We don't want to test just to test. I know a number of districts tested staff in the past, and to my knowledge in the county, there was not one positive result out of all those tests. I'm not knocking testing. I don't want anyone that's listening at home or sitting here tonight to think that I'm knocking testing. We just need to make sure that it's right and make sure that we put into place, if we do it, a process that's good for our kids and our classrooms in Upper Dublin. The 90 acres and the bus depot, I think the Steve Donnie Athletic Complex sounds nice. Personally, there would be a lot of irony in that comment, although with esports coming into play, I still have my shot to get that letter jacket. Obviously, the sale of the Prudential property, we're watching that closely, as the township is. Paul Leonard, the township manager, and I have been in communication already, and there will be further conversation about that and what the township needs and what the district needs. In terms of the bus depot, the transportation facility, one of the things that we kept hearing over and over and over again was that it was going to create poor air quality. So we need to answer that question, and that's what this study is for. That's what the study is for. And to remind everyone, that study is actually going to be conducted by bringing buses over to the proposed site and acting creating the same conditions, just as we would on any other day. The buses will be idling for just a few minutes because they're only able to idle for just a few minutes. There'll be air quality tests. We'll get those air quality tests back and we'll share those in public. And that will help inform further decisions. We don't want anyone walking away here tonight saying that the bus depot is definitely going there or the bus depot is definitely not going there. There's a lot yet to be determined. And I'll remind everyone, in June, we said we were not going to make any final decisions about the transportation facility over the summer because of people being on vacation and whatnot. And that's it.
Thank you, Dr. Yanni. Are there any other comments from the board? Mr. Sorrell?
Just one. There was a wish for school board members to comment on one particular topic, and just to say what I can say, I'm not going to say anything because it could compromise negotiations. And I think that's true of the rest of the board. It will take time. We'll still take input, and we got some good input and things you'd like us to consider. That input is certainly welcome, but right now it is sadly one directional. That's unfortunately the way it has to be, at least for the time being. So patience, please.
Thank you, Mr. Serrano. Any other comments from the board? Ms. Franzen?
The only other piece of that I would like to address as a special educator for almost the last 20 years, we have no authority to ask people to police what they say on Facebook or any other social media platform, but nothing that is happening has anything to do with any individual child, and no child is ever at fault for any type of issue that is being raised. So I hope that those on Facebook and social media can just take heed and that this process is ongoing and no child is at fault.
Thank you, Ms. Franzen. Any other comments? Okay, seeing none, we will just share information regarding our upcoming meetings. Our education committee meeting will be held September 1st at 6:00 p.m. The policy committee will also be held on September 1st at 7:15 p.m. or immediately following the education committee. Our finance committee meeting will be held on Wednesday, September 8th at 6 p.m. And then our legislative meeting will be held Monday, September 20th at 7:00 p.m. And with that said, we will adjourn our August 23rd, 2021 Board of School Directors Legislative Meeting. Just want to thank everyone for being here with us this evening. Have a good night.